Welcome to the Church Resource, where we talk about the best resources for pastors, leaders, and lay people. I'm your host, Jeff Oliver, today looking at, watch out, it's called a classic, and so that keeps many people away from it because we think it might be because it was written many, many years ago that it's too hard to understand, and it's something that we'll spend weeks and weeks and weeks trying to understand and won't be able to delve into the depths of any of it. Well, that's not true. This is written in a way that's very engaging. It's called The Knowledge of the Holy. It's A.W. Tozer. Wrote it in 1961, and that's has been a classic ever since. I think instantly it was a classic, and one of those that should be on every shelf, not just pastors, not just leaders of churches and people who teach and preach, but on every Christian's shelf. It should be there to just to be able to understand the attributes of God. There are other books, I think we've covered at least one by Arthur Pink that's called The Attributes of God. This is on that very subject, or subjects you might say, but I'll talk about the table of contents in a moment so you can see what are some of the attributes we're looking at. But this is one of those that I think everyone should have a good understanding of. And I'll tell you why. Tozer covers it right there in the preface, which is the preface doing exactly what a preface is supposed to be doing, telling us why he wrote this book and not substituting as kind of a first chapter of a book. But he says basically, and remember this is 1961, so this could have been written yesterday, but it says, the low view of God entertained almost universally among Christians is the cause of 100 lesser evils everywhere among us. A whole new philosophy of Christian life has resulted from this one basic error in our religious thinking. He says we've lost really a sense of majesty. We've lost a sense of the bigness. Of course, Tozer says it a lot better than that. The bigness of God, the grandiosity, let's say, of God and his character and his goodness, his holiness. And so this is something we need to reclaim, something we need to think about. So this is some, 60 years on, 65 almost years ahead now, and we need this book, I think, now more than ever. We needed it back then in 1960 when he was writing it, and certainly today in 2024 as I speak today. So some of the chapters, the table of contents, he talks about why we must think rightly about God, why that's so important and foundational for not only this book, but for our faith and understanding God. He talks about the divine attributes that only God has: self-existence, omnipotence, omnipresence. There's another omni in there somewhere, but all of those, and the eternity of God, the immutability of God, the omniscience of God, and just the importance of understanding those things and worshiping God, coming in contact with God, engaging with God, out of those attributes, out of that recognition, not with God as kind of a buddy of ours or somebody we chat with once in a while, but to really understand the gravity of who God is and his personality and character. I'll share one little snippet here from the holiness of God from that chapter, which is chapter 21, and it says, "Unless we have seen ourselves as God sees us, we're not likely to be much disturbed over conditions around us as long as they do not get so far out of hand as to threaten our comfortable way of life." In other words, we without understanding who God is and who we are compared to him, we just don't have the right perspective. We don't see things as we ought to see them. And I think Tozer has done an excellent job of doing this. There's a reason that a book like this has not been updated, revised, made relevant to today, because it was relevant to today when it was written 60 some years ago, and is very much so today. So I hope you'll take a look at this. This is very much suitable for small group Bible study. It would be good for a preacher, teacher to just have under his belt to be able to understand these concepts and have those as ready and available illustrations and examples as you teach the people you are in charge of. So I think everyone ought to be reading this book. If you haven't already, read it, and if you have, they probably stand to go over it again. So It's just one book on my shelf that's been helpful to me in my ministry, and I hope it gives you a bit of direction as you prayerfully consider which resources will best help you and the people you minister to. Well, thanks for listening to the Church Resource. Please make sure you give us a review. And if you have any suggestions of resources you would like us to look at, email us at thechurchresource@gmail.com. That's thechurchresource@gmail.com.